Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another fun and exciting episode of Next to Madison. I am your host, Madison Malloy, and on today's episode, we are talking about listening to your day. That's right. We have lost the ability to pay attention to most things around us, and we are so overwhelmed by all the distractions that we aren't really listening to our day, and we're missing some great pieces of information that can actually help us be happier, healthier, and wealthier. So I'm very excited. I've got the author of the new book that's available now called Listen to Your Day by Paul Angone, who's our guest. This is his fifth book. He's written a lot of very impactful self-help development books, and I'm super excited to have him come on and to give us some tips and tricks of how to be more present in your everyday life to improve your businesses, your career, and your friendships and your romantic relationships. So that being said, we will be right back after this brief message with our guest on this episode of Next to Madison.
Hey, it's Madison Malloy. I'm excited to announce that my new book, Time to Lighten the Fuck Up, is now available online and in stores. You can pick up your copy today by going to Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. This new book is a humorous self-help guide to help you remove the obstacles that are holding you back so you can take things less seriously and live a more enjoyable life. I'm so excited for you to read it. Now back to the show.
We are back with our amazing guest, Paul Angone, who is an author, speaker. This is his fifth book that he's going to be talking to us about today. He's also a husband, a father, a commercial star. I think I said speaker. He's everything. Oh, he's my high school friend. Welcome,
That's
Paul.
right.
How are you?
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here, Madison. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm so excited because you have been on the podcast before. I think this might be your third time.
I think it's only my second, but I was early days. I was maybe like episode 2 or 3 or 4. I mean, I think I was first season.
Came to your house.
Yeah.
I came to your house in the very beginning, and then you came on during the pandemic.
Did I? Maybe I did.
Yes, and now you're back. So
Oh, wow.
is your third time.
Hey,
and the reason
honored.
you're coming back is because you have another book. Well, you're awesome, but you have another book called
right.
Listen to Your Day that is out now, and it is amazing.
Well, thank you.
I love this book as a writer in the self-help space and somebody who preaches this stuff.
Yeah.
This is so good. It's so relevant.
So
I really, of course, I want to just first talk about, there is the first part of the book, you talk about how you're speaking on stage and you show this video to people, and you did it multiple times, and they all miss this moonwalking bear. So tell us about that, because that was kind of an integral part of creating this book.
Yeah, it was a good eye opener for me. And I'm sure people have seen videos like this. There's a gorilla, there's moonwalking bear. You know, they've been around for a while, but it always amazes me. I'll do these keynote talks and I'm in front of hundreds of people and really smart people. I mean, CEOs, leaders. And I'm delivering this video. And I basically say, I want to see who's paying attention out there in the audience. I want you guys to see if you get the answer right. And it's 2 teams throwing a ball back and forth, a team in white and a team in black. And the narrator asks, how many passes does the team in white make? And then I say, go. And so then they all start throwing the passes around. They're spinning around the screen. The video ends. And then I'll shout out from stage, who got the answer right? And they'll all shout 13. And then the narrator comes on and says, the answer is 13. And everybody cheers and goes crazy. And I'm like, wow, it's a smart group. And then the narrator stops and says, but did you see the moonwalking bear? And people are like, just watching people's faces, they're always like, what? And so then they rewind the video. It plays the same exact video. And while they're passing the ball, this man in a bear costume moonwalks across the entire screen, but you don't see him because of what psychologists call inattentional blindness, is that most of us actually don't see what comes across our field of vision because other attention demanding tasks are at place. So we're focused on something. And so whatever that comes across our vision that we're not focused on, really most of the time we do not see it. And psychologists are they've been alarmed about how little we do see. So I mean, we see even less than what psychologists thought we would see when they do studies like this.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Like, I mean, it is crazy how much we actually don't pay attention to certain things, or how often we're actually in our phones.
Oh yeah.
I got
Well,
yelled
yeah.
at this. I not yelled at, but my sister-in-law brought it up to me, and she brings it up to my brother, her husband, a lot too. Like, get off the phones. You guys come over here, and then you'll play
Yeah.
with the girls or you talk to the girls, and then you're on your phone. And I go,
Yeah.
well, I'm usually not like dicking around on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm either answering an email or I'm trying to create a post for work.
Yeah.
But now I'm more aware of it because she pointed it out, that I go, this doesn't look good. So
Yeah.
now I try to put my phone like away from me, because you really don't pay attention to like anything.
No. And this is why there's big campaigns for us not to text and drive or be looking at our phone while we're driving, because most of us are trying to do both at the same time and then we can't see what's in front of us. And I'm amazed. I'm on a busy street and I count the cars. I'll sit out there and do my own little subjective study. And it's probably 7 out of 10 people are kind of have their phone by their steering wheel. We're doing the thing where they think it's low enough that people can't see that they're on their phone, but they're looking at their phone while
So,
also driving.
like, in their hand.
Yeah, in their hand, like, they'll have one hand with their phone on the steering wheel, and it's, like, next to them while they're driving, and they're looking at their phone, and they're kinda looking ahead, but not really looking as much ahead as you think they should. But they don't really realize it because, again, there's, a switch cost. That's what psychologists talk about, and I talk about that in the new book. There's a switch cost to our attention. So even people that think they're really good multitaskers, that I can do all these things at once. Well, you really can't. Our brain can only focus on one thing at a time. You really can't do two things simultaneously. Like you're switching, even if you can do it
It's
quickly, and some
true.
people are better at it than others, but you're still switching. And so psychologists, they've been studying that and they call it switch cost because there's these gaps of attention. It's almost like, let's say you drive your car, right, and you're going to some place you've always been, you've gone to a million times. How many times do you get there and you're like, I don't even remember
Yes.
I can't even remember the last 3 turns.
And it's scary as shit because you're driving a very heavy piece of machinery.
Exactly. Exactly. So those are extreme cases, but then yeah, now you're talking about, yeah, in your living room with loved ones. And and that's definitely something that I was aware of and trying to be more intentional about too, because I have 4 kids, I have a wife, um, and it's easy to just have this reflex mechanism, and I call us kind of cultural escape artists now, where we're constantly escaping into our phone, and we can escape in plain sight. We don't need to go. You don't go outside necessarily and have the cigarette break anymore, right? To kind of get
Hmm.
away and take a break, get a hit from some chemical.
Yeah.
Now we're just like slinking into our couch, or you're at your meeting and you just kind of have your phone under your table, and again, nobody really notices you because everybody else has their phone under their table in the meeting, and you're all just kind of we're all escaping because it's our
Yeah.
reflex. It's a reflex mechanism now. We're not intentionally thinking or choosing that necessarily, or at least we don't think we are, because it's such a reflex and we're just doing it without our awareness. And that's partially why I wrote the book, because I felt like I was really struggling with that.
Well, I mean, it applies to so many people. I mean, right now it's all over the media about these social media addictions, and now there's lawsuits because of these younger generations, and especially like TikTok. I mean, you're on TikTok. I follow you on TikTok. Go
Yep.
follow him on TikTok. What's your TikTok so they can go follow you?
Paul Angone, I believe, which
Okay.
Angone, good luck. Angone. It's always a tough one.
Yeah, yeah. A gone.
That's right.
And
I've
gone.
been my middle name's Tony, so I could be Tony Angone
Oh,
to
that
be
would
a
be
real true
hilarious.
Italian, but that's a whole nother. I'd have to be in like Soprano spinoffs or something if I'm
Well,
gonna go Tony
exactly.
Angone.
So go follow him, but also limit your time when you open TikTok. It is so important to, I believe, for me as work, to set a timer.
Yeah.
This the Instagram and not as much, Facebook not as much. For something about TikTok, they have mastered that freaking algorithm to keep
Oh
you
man.
sucked in. I mean, literally as soon as I'm about to turn off, they hit me with a UFO video and I'm like, shit. And then they hit me with another video and I'm like, the world's ending. Wait, Jesus is coming back. Wait,
They have it
look
fine
younger.
tuned. They have it fine tuned. And I talk about in my book about a very famous book called The Hidden Persuaders, and it was by a guy named Vance Packard, and he talked about how we are being persuaded and manipulated far more than we realize, and especially with
We
advertising and
are.
how pervasive it's getting. The crazy thing is that Vance Packard wrote Hidden Persuaders in the late 1950s, and people were up in arms. Like kind of like Mad Men was coming about. These advertisers are getting
Okay.
so sophisticated, these subliminal messages. That was in the 1950s. Now, I mean, that was child's play
Oh,
compared to the master manipulators that are not really even people now. I mean, people are creating the algorithms, the AI, people are putting these things in place, but these things are so sophisticated, and their one goal is to take as much time from you as possible. They want to hook you. They want you to stick because time is money for
mm-hmm.
their investors and for their advertisers. They can
Yeah.
say this is how much time people are spending on our platforms. And so these algorithms and AI systems, they don't have your emotional well-being in mind. They don't have
No.
your mental health. They don't have your spiritual, your physical health. They don't have any of that. They don't care about any of that. All they want you to do is pay attention to them. And really, your attention is currency. I mean, it's literally in the phrase
The
paying
new gold.
attention. That's what
Yeah.
everybody wants. And there is a
Yeah.
war for our attention,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think we're fighting back. I think we've just kind of surrendered it
I
for
don't
the
think
most
the
part.
majority of us realize it. I think
Yeah.
we're enjoying. I mean, you take, and it's a generate. It goes across generations, right? You have
Yeah.
the baby boomer generation. They're primarily into retirement now, and they can get lost on Facebook all day, and that
Hmm.
brings them joy. So it's actually positive for them, right? Because they can connect with people that they wouldn't normally be connecting with in their lonely. Because these are also the loneliest years.
Hmm.
But then you have the younger generations where it's actually messing with how they build relationships. I think the generation you and I were raised in, we were pretty fortunate that we were kind of like school was kind of over before all this stuff happened.
Yeah, and that's
Thank
if you've
God.
if you've watched there's different documentaries that come out, Social Dilemma, and there's these different things talking about these subjects in depth. I think an alarming thing is especially when you think about us being in school, in the late '90s, early 2000s when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Not to date us, I don't want people. We're still young.
Hey, we still
Um,
look fucking great.
um, but I think the thing about high school, and what's alarming to me is that high school ended at high school. And if you're struggling with a bully or struggling with relationships or whatever, that didn't follow you into your room, and that bully wasn't there
Yes.
just waiting to get you
You
the
could go
moment
home
you
and
pick
have
up your
peace.
phone.
Yeah.
You could go home and you could hang out with some neighborhood kids. You could just hang out at your room with your parents, get some ice cream. You could escape, and in a good way, I think, from some of the pressures of all the anxieties and fears and peer pressure and everything that comes from growing up. But now kids can't do that. And so they're constantly feeling like, and then they feel like if they're not involved, if they're not on Snapchat, which Snapchat's big for younger people as their communication platform. Um, if they feel like they're not there, then they feel like they're losers. They're not
Yeah.
in the group. They can't communicate. So it becomes this double-edged sword for younger people. But yeah, what is it doing to self-worth, to anxiety and depression levels, which are going through the roof? I think these are playing real roles and factors as far as everybody goes, but especially young adults.
Yeah, and just paying attention, the ADD, it seems like everyone's diagnosed as something. And I'm like, no, I don't think as many people have ADD as we think they do. I think
Hmm.
it's just the fact that there's so many different things thrown at you. Your phone is constantly have pop-up things. Like we had a ding at the beginning of this. I didn't know. Like somehow when I updated my computer, like the text messages were coming through, but I turned the damn phone off in the other room to charge it. And I'm like, and it totally distracted me and I had to just
Yeah.
switch back immediately because it was somebody asking for a favor. and I want to help them, but like I was like, how am I going to do that? It was kind of a big favor. So
Mhm.
I had, and it's not supposed to pop up. And I'm like, wait, that was supposed to be shut off. Well, but it's
Yeah.
amazing how at any moment everything's like my phone. I usually, when I podcast, it's not in this room, because if
Mhm.
I see a light up, I'm going to look at
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the way it is. So let's focus. Let's get back to the book, because I think everyone should uh, pick up a copy and read this. This is coming from somebody who wrote a self book. I'm telling you to read this. It's great. But there's a lot in here that you talk about. So I just want to kind of summarize some pieces so you can kind of dive into them more.
Mhm.
So what I want to, you talk about the importance of memories in
Hmm.
helping you, that are important to being more present. Can you
Yeah.
kind of expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah. I tried to take this idea of attention and mindfulness and being present, but look at it in a lot of different ways. Because I think when I think of being present or being mindful, it's always about being in the moment, being in the now, being aware of what's going on. And I definitely think that's part of it. But for me, I even try to break it down into chapters like memories. And for me, it became a good experience to pay attention to the memories that are popping up. I call them seminal memories. These
Mm-hmm.
memories that are our meaning makers. Memories are our meaning makers. They really create the meaning. They're our backstory to the
Yeah.
ways that we are right now, into what we love, what
Yeah.
brings us joy, what brings us anxiety. A lot of this is stemming from our memories. So for myself, I know there's different times where a certain memory or certain things will keep popping up during the day, and I'll have this flashback or these different things. And I started paying attention to those and even writing them down and trying to understand why is this important? Why does this memory keep popping up? Because there's something
Mm.
there, and there's some message that's trying to be told me,
Oh, wow.
from the universe or from God or whatever your beliefs are. But why does this memory keep coming up?
Yeah.
Because there's something important there that I'm not taking note of. And so that's why I said we got to pay attention to those moments where these certain memories, these certain things, it could just be a flash image. It could be a song, a smell, but we have to take note of these because there's an important message being relayed to us that we need to hear.
Genius. No, it's so true. But most of my memories that come up when I hear, like you mentioned, a song,
Yeah.
and I think back about my like childhood, let's say at the lake, spending
Yeah.
long summers at the lake. They weren't, they're good memories.
Yeah.
They're positive memories. So if those keep popping up, what do you think the message is there?
It could be, I mean, it could be just for a little bit of, to feed your soul, to give you that kind of hit
Nostalgia.
of like feelings of, rootedness and
Yeah.
meaning.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. Um, but it also could be showing you like things like, hey, Madison, like this is when you felt really at peace. This is when you felt a lot of joy, being
Oh,
around people you love, being in nature by a lake, because
yeah.
I'm a big proponent. I talk about that in the book. We got to get out, get to those moments, find those kind of holy places in our life, even now. That wasn't just for when we were kids. We got to take time to take a walk by a lake, to go on a hike, to get into some sort of nature, just whatever it is, because
Yeah.
we need those breaks. We need those times where we can actually listen and hear, uh, and feel again that sense of rootedness instead of feeling just constantly distracted, frantic, anxious. I got to go everywhere a million miles a minute. I think that would be my instant feeling of those kind of memories of childhood and kind of what it might be just saying.
Yeah. No, that's really well said. And then obviously if it's something that's like maybe traumatic, not traumatic necessarily, but it could be
Yeah.
a lesson. What about thoughts that, because this happens to everybody, like thoughts of, this happens to me actually. There's a trail in Colorado like Paul and I are both in Colorado, uh, called the Highland Canal, and it runs behind some very cute, nice houses.
Hmm.
I don't know if cute's the word I should use for the houses, but sometimes I'll get in like a daydream and I'm like, oh, I wonder what it's like to live there, or wouldn't that be nice? I wonder what their day's like. And you kind of get
Hmm.
lost in this
Yeah.
fantasy. But I'm not that type of person. Like I'm so
Yeah.
focused on my goals and I've been around so much wealth from being in
Yeah.
New York that like but they just feel quaint and they feel homey and they feel
Yeah.
comfortable and they feel maybe it's showing me like what my future could be if I stay on track. I don't know. So how do you
Yeah.
interpret that stuff?
I don't know, and I'm not a psychologist, so I'm just speaking
Yeah.
off the cuff here. But it does go to this idea of mind wandering, and,
Okay.
and that's an interesting topic for me because I talk about mind wandering in the book. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought about that it's good sometimes that your mind is wandering, that it's actually a good thing. And again, it's revealing a lot of important truths to you.
Yeah.
And so it's
Okay.
okay. So it depends on the situation that we're allowing our mind to wander. Because let's say, we've all been in class, right, where you're supposed to be listening to a professor or whatever,
Yeah,
and then all of
yeah.
a sudden and you're thinking about something else, your mind's wandering, and then all of a sudden you're like, your face is beat red because the professor's like standing right in front of you asking you like, so what's the answer? And
Yeah.
you're like, oh crap, Abraham Lincoln, like, Jesus, I don't know. Whatever I'm supposed to say. So that might not be the best time for mind wandering to happen. But those times where we feel at peace, where we're doing the dishes or taking a shower or going on a walk, this is what we call aha moments, right? Because not just even the mind wandering of, I'm thinking about this, I'm kind of daydreaming, but also these moments of, oh wait, that's the answer. Like that's
Yeah.
the answer to my relationship problem. Like I know what to do now, or that's the line I should write in my book, or that's the title of my next book, or that's the business idea. Like it's in those moments that we have these aha moments.
Yeah.
And I fear that we don't have these as much now because we don't protect these spaces of quiet and reflection, of just going out and taking that walk so that your mind can wander, and you might need to follow it there and then see again what it's telling you, what your day is showing you, that you then can write down, and it could be a life-changing idea, uh an aha moment that you would have never thought of before.
Yeah, no, I like that. And just kind of summarize so you guys can kind of apply this and get a quick snapshot. So when you're really paying attention, or in this case, listening to your day, the memories can be showing you something about yourself. Maybe you need to be more joyful and playful. Maybe you need to watch out for something, or maybe you need to let your mind wander. So it's amazing because we just think like, oh, we're going through a day and I'm thinking about this. When you actually start paying attention to it, like, what is it trying to tell me? It opens up a
Mhm.
whole nother can of worms. So
Exactly. Yeah,
that is
well put.
very, very good. So you also mentioned something about how you should pay attention to your excitement and your anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, these are great signposts, really. These are great revealers of truth in your life. And I think a lot of people, especially if you are in transition, or maybe you're at a crossroads in your life, whether it's a relationship or a career or where you should move, some big decision.
Yeah.
A lot of the times our anxiety and our excitement both are revealing something very important to us. But again, we don't necessarily pay attention to it throughout the day. And really what I think it's showing you, it could be a few things. It could be your values at work. So I talk about, what are your top values? And this is a basic question that we've heard probably our whole life. But literally, like, what are your top five, like, soul values? The values that you're going to make your decisions based off of. And what's your number one? Like,
Hmm.
if you had to rank it, and I had a mentor do this to me, and
Okay.
I found it much harder than I thought it would be,
Yeah,
because
I'm
I'm like,
kind
oh,
of
I know
thinking
my
right now.
values, like, oh yeah, love and justice and peace, whatever
Yeah.
words,
Loyalty.
but then
Yeah.
it's like, what actually, when I'm met with a hard decision, like, what is value number one, and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of the times when we're feeling anxious, there could be a lot of root causes to that. But for me, I think a lot of times when I'm feeling anxious, if I start to think about it and I define my anxiety, and that's an important step for me, is I have to pay attention to the anxiety,
Hmm.
not just run away from it or escape from it or medicate from it. I'm not saying that medication is not helpful, but I'm saying, like, just medicating yourself so you don't have to think about all this anxiety in your life. Sometimes I have to define it and be like, why am I anxious right now? What was it? And I have to take those steps back, even like, was it this? Was it that? Was it that conversation? And then when I can define what it was, well, now I can also maybe point it to a value that's being contradicted in my life.
Yeah, and they
You
also
know,
say like
so
a lot of anxiety is also like fear of the unknown,
yeah,
but
yeah, it
it
could be
could
for
have a
sure.
reflection of a past experience that you're relating it to. Like
Yeah.
maybe your last relationship didn't work out. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
going on a date and your anxiety is coming from the fact that
Yeah.
that failed. But this
Yeah.
isn't has nothing to do with. So I
Yeah.
like that you really start paying
Yeah.
attention. You're like, "No, I'm really not anxious. I'm just
Yeah.
have
I'm just
bad
concerned, or I just have, I
patterns."
just actually this, relationships are really important to me. And I want to find somebody who I can really trust
Yeah.
because
I
I know
like
trust is
that.
so important, And so again, it just gives you so much more of a framework and definition to be basing your decisions off of,
No,
you
I think
know?
that that's really I'm just taking notes while I'm looking down sometimes.
And for
Yeah.
myself too, like let's put in a work example too, like communication, I always felt like was a skill of mine. People would say like, Paul, you should do communication somehow, like speak or sell something, like something where you're talking. And so I would go and try to do sales jobs where I'm selling something or whatever, and I would always be terrible at them. Like I was just terrible at a sale as a salesperson. I wasn't good at it. And I started realizing for myself, like a top value of mine is authenticity. Like I really have to believe in what I'm talking about, which is why I became an author. Like I have to write and really
Yeah.
give myself and really put everything I have into a book so that I can authentically talk about it. Because if I was just trying to sell a book that I didn't think was important, I couldn't do it. And so
Yeah,
my
you and
my
I are very
value
similar
for
that way.
authenticity trumped my strength. Like my strength wasn't a strength anymore because it was in contradiction with a value. And I
Very
think
well
that can be
said,
the
yeah.
case for a lot of us at work, especially.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
we're killing at work, we're like using our skill set, and yet we still feel like something's missing, right? Or we feel bad, or we just anxious all the time.
Yes.
And I think it's some of this conversation that if we pay attention to, we can get more definition about.
Yeah, and I think if people really started listening and paying attention instead of just going through the day with blinders on,
Yeah.
they could make some more positive decisions in their life to leave a job that is not fulfilling them or a relationship or um, hang out with better people, whatever it is, instead of
Yeah, or
just
just
going
tweak
through the
something,
day.
You could
Yeah.
just say, "Hey, I just there's this one part of my job that's giving me the problems. I actually like all this other stuff. It's just this one thing."
Yeah.
So I actually don't need to leave the job. I just need to have a conversation with my manager to say, "Hey, can I not do this thing as much? I
Yeah.
really think I excel in these other ways." Or it could be your relationship. It could be just, there's just this one thing that's really a hang up for me right now. Um,
Yeah.
and we can work on that, and so again, as we're listening and paying attention and seeing and hearing our day, man, there's just so much wisdom that I think we start operating with. And I do think in our culture, we have a glut of information, but we don't have necessarily a glut of wisdom of how do I apply information correctly in my own life.
Yeah. No, I think that that's I mean, that's very well said. And so you talk about paying attention to the right things, which we've talked about a lot on kind of this podcast. But what are some tips to make sure people are like paying attention to the right things? So all of a sudden people are listening to this podcast and they go and get your book and they're like, okay, how do I make sure that I'm paying attention to the right things? Because
Yeah,
there's so much shit around me all day.
yeah. Well, I mean, the book is a great start because, as we were talking about,
It's a
there's
tool.
exercises in every chapter to help you do
I
that.
love yes, and I do love that, and I love that there's, like, room to write in it, so it's
Yeah.
almost like a little bit of a journal. Here's one here where you actually put in the book, where you have, like, on the anxiety part of it and the
Hmm.
energy and the excitement, right? You have, like, what exactly are you feeling? Emotions, thoughts, and physically, and then under energy, what exactly are you feeling? It's the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wanted this book to get messy, a book that's really something
Yeah.
that you're interacting with and you're getting the answers as you're going through this process and changing our habits and practice of paying attention to what is important. We can write it down in this book. So that's, well, the whole point of it. But there is some ways
Yeah.
that I think now let's start framing and concentrating on what is important. How do we start really narrowing our focus? Because I think in
Yes.
today's age, like, we talk about like, fear of missing out or that we have too many choices, right?
Yes.
And we
You
always
can't
see
pick a Netflix movie anymore. You can't pick a
I
movie.
can't. I was like 20 minutes. I couldn't commit to anything. I would watch like 3 minutes and I'm like, do I really want to give an hour and a half to this? Like I can't. And then I waste 30 minutes trying
I,
to pick something and then it was too late and I'm like, I should just go to bed. What am I doing? Um
yeah.
but it's like going, we talk about going to the cereal aisle, right? And there's just so many cereals. And it's like, well, what do I choose? What cereal do I pick? For my
Oh,
kids, for my wife, for myself, there's a million choices. But now I feel like we're in that cereal aisle and we're like, well, I gotta try, well, let me try it. Let me try this. And we just like rip the top off and just start pouring like fruity pebbles in our mouth and then Cocoa Puffs and Raisin Bran or whatever. Like metaphorically, like I feel like this is what our day looks like, especially on our
yeah.
phone. It's just
Oh,
like, well, let me try this. I gotta pay attention to that. I gotta try, let me just rip it all off. And I'm in there for 5 hours. And it's
yeah.
like, why is nobody kicking me out? I should be kicked out of this place. I'm a crazy person, but that's really what we're doing. So we got to narrow our focus. We got to narrow it and start, okay, what is important to me right
Yes.
now?
I
Um,
like that.
and this is how we're going to make progress. If you don't feel like you're having breakthrough ideas in your life, if you don't feel like you have clarity, if you don't know which road you should go on, or if you're just struggling with like, I'm struggling with a project at work, or I'm struggling with a chapter in my book, or whatever it might be, we start narrowing our focus to answer that question. So that could even start as we wake up and we're getting ready for the day. We could start going through the practice and habit of saying, it could even be simple like, well, what do I want to accomplish today? Or what is my goal today? Or what's something that I really want to focus on today? And even as we ask ourselves and frame and narrow our attention to start our day, well, that now is giving our mind a direction because again, our mind can paying attention is a choice, and so that gives our mind saying, "Hey," it's like giving a warning or giving your mind permission to say, "Hey, mind, this is what I want us to focus on today. Like,
Yeah.
get the antenna up, and I want you to focus on this because it's really important to us.
Yeah.
So let's do that. So we can start framing and narrowing our concentration and our attention so that we can focus on what we choose to focus on.
And
Um,
I think that's going to also make people happier because you know what I mean? Like if you're
mhm.
focusing, if you're subconsciously focusing on all the shit, negative stuff,
Oh
you're
yeah,
going to be really anxiety ridden, you're going to be unhappy, you're going to be like why does my day suck? But if you're really, as you said, narrowing your focus and focusing on the positives and what you want, because it's kind of like the moonwalking bear. If
yeah.
you are so focused on all the positive and the gold and the good stuff, you're going to miss the shit
Mhm.
around you because you're so focused. So I like that. So you have this one thing in your book. You said practice paying attention to your relationships, and you actually have an exercise in here that I like. It says write down your top 3 relationships. How much attention do you give them on a daily basis? And then write one action you can take this week to pay more attention to each of them. I like that. So give us an example of how somebody that's going to pick up this book can say, okay, my most important relationship is with my
Yeah,
parents.
yeah. Yeah, I think this is a big one, and I think I give like 3 or 4 chapters to relationships in
You
the
do.
book.
It's a lot.
Um, because they're I mean, relationships are, a
Everything.
lifeblood of every
Yeah.
day, and that's
Yeah.
such a huge part, whether in business or family or friendships or whatever it is, it's these relationships. And I guess it was shocking to me when I was getting honest with myself of how much attention really am I paying to the people I say that I love and care for the most? And really, to be honest, it was pretty minimal. I'm really not giving the choice time of my day or my real concentration or focus to the people I say I love the most. And I think it actually gets harder with the people you love the most because you get lazier with those people.
Because you expect them
Especially
to always be around.
in marriage, you're like, whatever, I don't need to pay them. We're not dating anymore. We've been
Yeah.
married for 10 years. Like I can just go through the motions, like kind of listen to them half-heartedly and then keep going throughout my day. Well, I think this becomes, a big part of why marriages break up. It's because we're just not paying attention to each other anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and so a simple thing could be, especially with your spouse or loved ones in your family or children, it's again putting away your phone. You could put it in another room, because every time when that person's talking to you and you're getting notifications or whatever, and you're glancing at your phone, you're picking up your phone, you're looking at your phone, you are really subconsciously giving them the message that my phone is more important than you. Like
Yeah,
whatever
it's
is going
true.
on my phone is more important than you. And so I'm going to give my attention to my phone over you. And I think a lot of us, we don't even realize we're doing that again, because subconsciously we've just become used to looking at our phone so many times that we don't realize we're giving away that message. And especially
Yeah.
if we're in an important meeting, like eye contact, leaning forward, just simple body movement and positioning makes a big difference for that person to feel like, oh, they're really paying attention to me, versus if you're leaning back or your arms are crossed or you keep glancing other places or looking at your phone. Well, it doesn't matter what you're saying. You've now shown that person you don't really care. And so the
Yeah.
meeting's going to dissolve from that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always obvious when you're trying to talk to somebody and you've already lost them and you're like, oh, okay, speed this
And
shit
what's
up.
the point? You don't want to, there's just too much time to try
Ugh,
to get them back. You don't even care,
I know.
So I even talk about, like, if you're meeting somebody for the first time, or if you're with somebody for 20 years, the ability to ask them really good questions, or just ask them any questions, um, is really important. So let's take a networking event. Just going in, and instead of feeling like you got to pitch yourself, or I got to give my elevator pitch to let everybody know how amazing I am, it's instead meeting people and saying, I'm going to try to get them talking about themselves for like the first 2 minutes. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even want them to I don't want them to ask me anything. I just want to ask them questions about themselves. And you might get that person talking for 5 minutes about themselves. They might ask you nothing. And let's say somebody interrupts the conversation. Well, they're probably going to leave that conversation thinking, I really like
Yeah.
Madison. Like, I really like Paul. Like, they're great. Like, I definitely want to introduce them to somebody or do whatever it is. And they might not even realize that you didn't even really talk about yourself
Yeah.
at all. You allowed them
It's
the
true.
space. It was like, wow, somebody is paying attention to me. I think nowadays more than ever, like, we're really hungry and desperate at times to be seen and heard, to feel loved, to
Oh
feel
my
like, wow,
gosh, yeah.
somebody actually notices me. Especially for kids too. Like, we're all working so much, we're all so busy, and I think there's just so many kids that are just starving for mom or dad or somebody to just like sit down and say, you know what? How are you doing? I see you. I hear you. I love you. Let me take time and spend it with you. Because attention really is how we show love. Like, that's where it starts. You can't really love somebody well if you're not intentionally paying attention to them.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It's absolutely true. Yeah. And so it's not only paying attention to your own day, but also paying attention to others when they're in your presence, which can be a big thing. And then towards the end of the book, you talk about cultivating mindset models, and you
Hmm.
have a lot of different examples. Okay. So you've got ones for the business, the entrepreneur, and then the
Hmm.
farmer. The farmer is
Well,
interesting.
yeah, they're just,
So
yeah,
should
they're,
people be reading all these if they're not a
yeah,
farmer? There's the
yeah. You don't
writer.
have to be, you don't have to be these, it's a way, it's almost like role playing. It's like you can play, it's
Okay.
almost like you can play a game. And to
Okay.
change again, because again, we're looking through our day through specific lenses, certain ways that we usually look through our day at. So these mindset models are almost ways to, hey, how do I take myself kind of out of my usual routine? And today, let me think like an entrepreneur. Even if I'm a professor or whatever, I want to think like let me think like an entrepreneur today. Well, how do entrepreneurs think? Well, as I've studied entrepreneurs and become one myself, one thing the entrepreneurs I think are really good at is they recognize problems, frustrations, they recognize obstacles throughout their day. But entrepreneurs get excited about them sometimes. They're like,
Yeah.
wow, has somebody done something about this problem? Like, somebody
Yeah.
must have done something, and they try to find it, and then they figure out nobody's done anything about this problem. and they're like, oh my gosh, this is a business idea, right?
Yeah.
And so I share some of these stories in the book of that exact thing. So like for any of us, how do we practice having an entrepreneurial mindset? And today, let me look at all my problems throughout the day as possible opportunities, and let me write them down, and that's what I have
I
in the book. Let
like
me write
that.
down my problems, my
Yeah.
frustrations, things that really get me angry. Now, is there something I could do about them? And that might be just a day's worth of doing that exercise that you might be like, oh my gosh, this this glaring idea was in front of me all along. And I just thought it was something I needed to just escape from or get away from or distract myself from, but it was actually something that you need to do something about for your business. Um, so, I mean,
Yeah.
and then, for a farmer, I have monk mindset.
Yeah.
From the monk mindset, it's just, again, a way to reframe our day to say, how do I think like a monk today?
I
How do
like
I
that. It's kind
really
of,
seek those silent spaces throughout my day? And let's do
yeah.
exercises around that today. So it's just different ways to look at your day. And I think everybody will be shocked and amazed at what they see and hear as they're doing these different exercises.
Yeah, well, it's so true. And it's also, there's that old saying is like, show up today as the person you want to be, the future
Mm-hmm.
you. So if the future you is wealthy and successful, whatever it is for you,
Hmm.
you have to start acting like that person. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a good exercise to kind of do that. Like, how would you act as these different things? So it's
Yeah,
kind of fun. It's like a
that's a good way
fun,
to put it. Yeah.
yeah, a fun challenge. So where can people buy the book?
Yeah, they can, I think, buy it anywhere books are sold, really.
Okay.
Amazon, Barnes Noble, maybe it goes into Target. You could ask your Target if they have it.
Yeah.
Um, or they can jump online. They can, my website, allgrownup.com.
Hmm.
Grown is GROAN, all grown up. It's punderful is my terrible joke, but all
Yeah.
grown up. You can get free chapters, the first 2 chapters for free, as well as free chapters from my other 4 books if you want to. If you want to do
Okay.
a deep dive into all things Paul Angone,
Yeah.
you can do that.
I
Um,
love it. His books are great, you guys.
well,
He has
thank
a
you.
book about that he talked about way back on the podcast, like almost 4 years ago, about his book about the 20s, the things he learned in his 20s.
Yep.
What were your other books again?
Well, I have
Remind me.
101 secrets for your 20s,
Yep.
and then I have 101 questions you need to ask in your 20s, and let's be honest, your 30s too.
Hmm.
And then I have 25 lies 20 somethings need to stop believing. So I
Yeah.
have a lot of like 20, 30 something focus books.
And now
Because I
that
think
you're 40, you need to
you,
write about what you learned in your 30s.
that's right. Few months away. I'm still 39, so I'm hanging on by a
This
thread.
is
But
true. Yeah, exactly. Hey, nothing will change. It's just the calendar, right? At least you're.
that's right.
So yes, you guys pick up a copy of this book, listen to your day, and start being more mindful and present, and you will be amazed at what you will learn about your day. So, Paul, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence
Well,
again
thank
on the
you.
Next to Madison podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Madison.
Yeah, you were amazing, amazing, amazing. So thank you, Paul, and thank you to everyone who's listening, wherever you may be. I appreciate each and every one of you. We will see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.